Hey everyone. So, this episode is going to be the first episode of a series that I'm going to be calling Tea4T's, where we serve some tea for the teas in your life, and we talk about some of the topics that might have been hard for me or might have been something that I might have needed advice on when I was early in my transition. I think there's a lot of things that were just completely out of my wheelhouse, and a lot of things that were just slightly out of my comfort zone that I really could have used some advice on when I was first transitioning. So, this series is going to try and break down these topics step by step and give you sort of a roadmap or a guide to some things that might be helpful to you during your transition. I don't want this to be taken as a one size fits all, manual, but it's just a guide that might give you some ideas or maybe help you through some situations that you may have struggled with and or may be struggling with right now. And without any further ado, I would love to get started. So, we're going to talk about our first topic today, which is going to be how do I know that I am trans? Or, slash, I think I'm trans, what do I do? So, when I first found out that I might be trans, or first started thinking about that as a possibility, I think that it was a really big moment for me, and I can't express the emotions that were going on in my head, but it was this feeling of I I feel like I have been pushing part of myself away, and I know that there is something here that I want to look at, but there's just so much shame, and there's so much guilt, and there's so much, judgment from myself and from all the people in my life. And so this was one of the hardest steps for me, I want to say. Just finally admitting that, hey, I am trans, and there's something here that I need to look at, and I can't keep hiding it. I can't keep pretending like I am like everyone else. And I just remember sitting in my room on my computer and reading an article about warrior princesses, and how there was this strength and femininity that I had never really considered before. And it all kind of just broke down, and I realized that one of the biggest reasons that I didn't think I could be trans is because of how strong I felt I was. And just being realizing, like, yes, they're a strong woman, and then 6 years after transitioning, realizing how strong really women really are. Let me tell you, you can definitely be strong and still be a woman. But what I think I struggled with the most, more than any part of myself, was just the judgment and feeling like this almost guilt at trying to express myself how I needed to express myself, or I felt like dirty or wrong. And I'm not a super religious person, but I felt like the Christian version of like sinful, and just like this creature kind of thing. And that's really hard when you're first going through this big life change, to be dealing with all those emotions. And I think just getting to the point where you can realize, like, hey, this is a question that I want to start asking myself, is a big deal, and you should celebrate that. If you've even done that, and you're even at the point where you can ask yourself, like, hey, is this something that I want to consider? That took me years. So just understand that it's part of the process, and you are a lot stronger than you think you are just for coming to this point. So thank you for joining me today. So the next part of this question is, I think I'm trans. What do I do about it? And that's really the $1,000,000 question, because there's no right way to express being trans. But for me, I think just telling people, just having people in my life where I could communicate, hey, this is who I am, it was the biggest thing for me early on in my transition. Just finding any kind of safe group of people, whether it's a support group, whether it's your parents, whether it's your friends, whether it's the queer club at school, like any person that you can tell, do it, because it gives you that little bit more validation and that little bit more proof that this is real, that this is part of who I am. Just expressing yourself, being seen as yourself, I think, is the whole point of transitioning, and having someone who can validate that. I mean, as much as you should be validating yourself, it helps if you also have external validation. So just finding people that you feel safe enough to tell that, I think, is really important. Aside from that, finding safe spaces where you can dress as yourself, another big deal. This is something that a lot of people take for granted, but just being able to go into public and be yourself is really scary when you're first wanting to transition. I remember I spent like a couple months just like in panic mode, trying to figure out if there's anyone who I could convince to go clothes shopping with me, or to go out to a drag bar. And thank God one of my friends, Kelly, she was there at the time. And I can't recommend getting out and actually physically being in public as your gender, how much that can do for you, and how scary it is. Yes, and you will have bad experiences. I'm going to be honest. There are going to be people who make you feel less than because you exist. It's hard, but it's worth it when you have even just one person who validates you. It's just like, all of the pain is worth it to me. Just having people in my life who see me as myself now, and being able to see myself as myself now. And it took me having other people to encourage me. I think ideally, you should be able to love yourself enough, but it's not always that simple. And sometimes getting a little bit of a hand is okay if you need it and if it's available for you. But with that being said, this has been episode 1 of T4T's, a transition guide. I look forward to seeing y'all on the next episode. Much love always.